All right, so this is the last stage of the teapot. So right now I'm gonna finish doing the lid and the handle. So earlier in my demo, I kind of made a mistake on my, my slab for my lid. And since then I went around my home and I found that the tip of this glass was actually the perfect cookie cutter size for inside of my teapot. So I went ahead and I rolled a new slab and I used that as a cookie cutter. So, haha, figured it out at home. Usually I would use an actual cookie cutter, but I don't actually have cookie cutters. So I've got that slab, which is leather hard. And the first thing that I want to do is come in and refine the edge. So I'm going to take my little sponge, a little bit of water on it, and I'm just going to smooth out and round out my edge so that it's really attractive. When you're thinking about your lid fit, you want to account for the fact that the glaze is going to take up a little bit of the space in your lid fit. By which I mean, when you consider where the glaze is going to go in your lid, you want to make sure that there's enough room for your lid to have a little bit of play, a little bit of wiggle around in that space. And if you do like a tight fitting type of lid like this one, so this one has a gallery, and then this lid has a knob as well as a part that goes inside, but there's not a lot of room for sizing to change. It's a pretty tight fit in there, in that lid gallery. And when I applied glaze to my lid, that adds a little tiny bit of distance. So a little tiny bit of distance was added here when the glaze went on, and a little tiny bit of distance was added on that part. So you want to make it so that it's a looser fit to start with before you put glaze on, so that it will be a perfect fit later. All right. So from here, I'm going to take my nicely smoothed out edge, make sure that it looks really attractive, double check my fit, which is still excellent. And I'm going to put a lid latch on it. I wouldn't have to do this because I have a gallery, but I really like how it stands up. So I've just made a little hand rolled coil, and I want it to be significantly smaller than the space that it's going to occupy. So I'm testing this little circle on the inside here, and that seems like it's gonna work. So I'm gonna pick a side of my lid, and I'm going to slip and score the little circle that I've got here to the inside. You could also do this with a slab. It does not have to be a coil. And I'm just gonna slip and score the whole area and slip and score the whole coil. I'm gonna cut my ends of the coil so that it can meet each other and be a perfect circle instead of like the looser one. So I actually cut that, and I'm gonna stick it together so that it makes a perfect circle, because if I just ripped it, it would not be a perfect circle. All right, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get some slip involved and try to center that there, and I'm just gonna lightly press that on. And I can come around the edges and weld it, but as you guys know, once you've got a good slipping and scoring, you don't actually have to do that. You could just clean it up with a paintbrush. So that's what I'm gonna mostly do here. And get on the inside there, and then clean that up nicely. All right, so now I've got a lid that has a lid latch that can drop in. And now I'm gonna attach my knob on my lid. So I wanna smooth my top of my lid. And I made this little curly cue. I took some water on my fingers, and similar to the way that I pulled the handles, I kind of pulled it out, and then I just made a little swirl with it. So I'm gonna just very delicately slip and score the connection points, trying not to mess up my edges. This is definitely a little wetter than I should be doing this, but I think it'll work out. So then I'm gonna tap that on there to see where I need to slip and score. So that's what it will look like. So I've tapped it on there. And now I'm gonna take my paintbrush and slip and score just the spots where that's gonna show up. So I'm using actually like a sharp tool instead of my scoring rib this time, because I don't want any of those errant score marks to show up. Okay, and I've placed it on there, and all I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna need to weld it, I'm gonna just lightly press it on there. Okay, and then I'm gonna let that set up a little bit, and I'll clean it up a little bit later with, but that's gonna be very cute. I'll clean it up a little bit later with a paintbrush. All right, so now onto the handle. So my handle is wet leather hard. I know this because I can hold it on one side and it'll start to slump, but it'll still mostly hold its form. This is the ideal stage to do it. If it gets too firm, it won't flex at all, and it won't be able to like flex, you know, as I adapt it to the form of the piece. And if it's too firm, when I try to do that, it'll just straight up crack and you'll need to make a new one. So the first thing that I want to do is cut the bottoms of these two pieces, you know, the two edges of it, to suit the fact that this is like a curved angle. So I'm going to cut one going up a little bit, and I'm going to cut the other one going up in the opposite direction. So it's just very slight. And then I'm going to consider where I want to put it. I want to give enough like clearance on my lid area that it has some space, but I like how that looks. It seems like there's an appropriate distance here so that my lid would have enough room to do what it wants to do. But you'll notice that the spout is kind of in the way, and I need to change the angle that that's coming to. So I'm just gonna take my cutting tool and very slightly change the angle, and now it's coming to a perfect fit, and it's equidistant from here. A lot of folks, the rookie mistake to make is instead of lining up your handle with your spout to like put it akimbo a little bit, or to accidentally put it this way. This is not how a handle goes. Like, it should be pouring like this. It's awkward if it's going the opposite way. Okay, so which way? There we go. And the other rookie mistake that I see people make is that they'll get the front lined up really good, but the back will be like off like that. So don't let that happen to you. Make sure that you're straight as you consider where to place it. All right, so I've got it about where I intend to put it. Give it a good eyeball and make sure that you're not falling victim to any of the rookie mistakes. Like, I noticed that this angle here could be a little bit better refined. All right, and now it's just a slipping and scoring party. So I'm gonna mark out where I'm gonna slip and score. So I'm gonna mark out with a sharp tool the front and the back and the sides of the area where I'm slipping and scoring, so you can see that. And then I'll do the same on the front. The front is gonna slightly overlap with the area where my spout went on. So if your spout isn't yet leather hard, wait. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and slip and score both parts. So the handle itself, as well as the actual piece. And I'm gonna use a tool that's handheld instead of my scoring rib, because I don't wanna make a big mess of scoring marks everywhere. You notice that I'm scoring in like 5 different directions to make sure that it's a really, like, if it doesn't look like raw hamburger, you haven't really scored and slipped enough. There should be slip that is ready to ooze out of the edges where you make your attachment. And if it's not yet that gooey, it's not ready. And keep going. So I'm scoring one direction, a second direction, going diagonal, both ways. Really get a good slip and score, because the handle is all that's gonna stand between you and boiling hot tea. So you really, you know, as a potter, if you're gonna sell your work, you need to make sure that your attachments are good attachments. Okay, I'm adding just a little bit more slip in there, and I'm just gonna give it one more go. Make sure that's all really well mixed up. All right, so then I'm gonna remember which end I had cut to fit my spout area, which is this front one, and which I had put for the back, giving it a last eyeball. Okay, and then you can try to put your finger underneath where you're pressing. And I do this kind of milking motion. So I'm gonna take my fingers and just glide them down. Okay, but I'm right-handed, so maybe I should do it. Ah, here we go. No, it's still gonna block it. But anyway, I'm holding it underneath there and milking the handle down onto it. And you can see that now all this slip has gushed out from the edges. That's a good sign. Now I'm gonna make sure that I'm in a straight line with my spout. I'm gonna support underneath here in the back and do the same thing. So I'm just milking my handle down to create pressure. Okay, so now both are attached. I can just take a wet paintbrush, come around my edges, and wipe off the excess slip and create a very smooth and lovely transition. There are a couple of schools of thought about how the attachment should look. Some people really get very interested in it looking like it flows seamlessly into the body of the piece, and some people prefer more of a glued on look. There isn't just one way that is correct. As long as your attachment is solid, you could go with like this look, which is more of a like glued on look, or you could add some clay around the edges and smooth a little further. Okay, coming back to my lid. I'm coming in here now. There goes my sponge. And I'm doing the same thing, coming around with a little paintbrush and just cleaning up my transition points. Okay, so this is at leather hard. I'm gonna wanna come back to my, teapot when everything is quite a bit drier, and just check it over, make sure that everything is as intended. But for now, there's my teapot with the lid fitting in the gallery, fully functional, and I would just give it a last smooth once everything is quite a bit firmer. All right, good luck with your teapots.